Hey everybody, Nick Licameli here. Today I'm going to share a case study with you, and the purpose is to help bring some of these concepts into a real life example of an athlete. I think it'll help really kind of hit home some of these concepts, because sometimes we talk so much about concepts and theories and philosophies of pain and injury, but what does it all mean, right? How does it actually fit into the care and recovery of an athlete? So that's what we're going to do today and in the future. Now, it's important to know that this isn't like a cookie cutter step-by-step approach for everyone with similar, symptoms. The idea is just to show an example of how all of this fits together. And I'm also hoping on showing some examples of athletes who maybe didn't work quite as well as the athlete we're going to talk about today, because I think we can learn from the success stories and also the ones who were a bit more challenging and maybe required a referral out or a change of plan. Okay, so today we're talking about a female powerlifter in her late 20s. She was powerlifting since 2016, so some decent experience, about 4 years of controlled progression and proper training. Recently woke up with some low back pain. No real mechanism of injury, just kind of woke up with it, started getting worse and worse, which then started impacting her training and her daily life, especially sitting for long periods of time. So her current training was 4 days a week with a deadlift bench focus day, and then a squat bench day, and then a squat bench deadlift day, and then a squat bench day. Okay, and she was doing 5 sets for most of her main lifts, one single, and then as many reps as possible, and then some drop sets after that. But basically, that was the structure of her program, and she was being limited by this new back pain that came up. So after taking good history, right, understanding a bit about her, not focusing only on her back, we talked about her goals, which were to compete in a meet in late October of this year. Talked about how it was impacting her, talked about how training is fundamental to her life, and this is more than just a hobby to her, right? I'm sure we can all relate to that. So we got into a lot of that, talked about sleep quality, talked about stress, and made sure we had all of those conversations. And then we got into it. And so this case study will focus more on what we physically did and how we modified her training. But I just don't want everyone to forget that this is multifactorial, and we have to take the entire athlete into consideration. But for today, we're just going to talk about what we ended up changing and modifying. So what we started with was we focused on the squat and the deadlift. Benching didn't really bother her too much, so we just kind of let benching kind of ride its course. And as we desensitized her back through the focus on the deadlift and the squat, I hoped that it would desensitize any kind of lingering mild pain that she felt during the bench. And that's exactly what started happening. So what we started with, focus on the squat and the deadlift. What we started with was 3 sets of just the bar. Okay, 3 sets of just the bar. So for the squat, 3 sets of just the bar to an elevated box, just about above 90 degrees. And then after those 3 warm-up sets, then we added on a very light load, light relatively speaking for this individual. And we wanted her to get 6 to 8 reps at about an RPE 6. Okay, so I had her choose the weight that would fit that. And then similar with the deadlift. So with the deadlift, we did 3 sets of just the bar from an elevated block. And then we added on some light weight that would allow her to get to 6 to 8 reps at an RPE of about 6. Okay? That's where we started. And then she wasn't really doing much of a warm-up, so I offered some suggestions on a basic warm-up, dynamic hip mobility type things and things to kind of get the heart rate up, but mostly focus specifically on the squat and the deadlift. Yeah, nothing really spectacular with the warm up. Just wanted to add in some basic mobility things. And then, and again, mobility meaning like right before we get under the bar, we kind of progress slowly and slowly. Maybe we start on the floor with some basic hip mobility movements, and then we get right under the bar and take advantage of that short-term window of improved mobility and start grooving that movement. For her home exercise program, so days that she isn't training, what we had her do was just almost like a body weight squat to a chair. I also suggested she can possibly hold a light weight into her chest, make it kind of a goblet squat. Just kind of sit back into a chair and then come back up. Sit back into a chair and come back up. And that worked pretty well. And then we also had her do a kind of a quadruped, so on her hands and knees, just kind of like a sit back onto her butt, and then come back up on hands and knees, and then a sit back onto her butt. So it's almost like if you were to like turn the floor upward vertically, she would basically be doing like a squat pattern, if that makes any sense. The idea behind the home exercise program is just to continuously expose the body to these sensitive movements that keep flaring her back up without flaring it up, right? So just more exposures for her body to go through with these movements. So then we rode that out for a week, and her response was fairly good. The squats felt good, right? So that first modification with the squats felt good. The deadlift, however, felt good up until the last set. So she felt great doing the bar from the blocks, and then felt good doing the lightweight from the blocks. But then that last set gave her some pain, and so when she sent me the update, my response was I gave her a choice. I gave her a choice of what we can progress from there, so or what we can modify from there rather. So the two choices were we could either do those last 3 sets of the deadlift, we could either do 2 sets from a 2-inch block, which is what she was doing, and then the last set we do from a shin height, so almost like a rack pull, okay? Or, that was option 1. Option 2 is don't change a thing. Let's just ride it out another week and get more data and see if maybe this week was just a fluke for some reason, right? We know pain is a funny thing. It's not always a good measure of whether or not we have to change or modify something. So, gave her the option of either changing that last set to a bit higher elevation or just keeping it the same. And she chose to change the range of motion on that last set. For squats, we just increased the load slightly, and so those are the modifications for the first check-in. The response to that was that squats felt good again. So squats were progressing really, really well. At this point, she didn't really want to push it and progress the squats anymore. She said they were feeling good. She did that first progression the first time, and she felt comfortable just kind of riding it out and maintaining for another week. I felt fine with that, and it's very important. You're going to see a theme in a lot of these case studies is that I ask the athlete what they think, what they want to do, because no one knows their body better than them, right? So she wanted to keep squats the same. She was happy with how she was squatting at the moment, and the deadlifts felt great. They felt good with 2 sets from the 2-inch block, and then 1 set from the higher block, almost like a rack pull. So that felt good. So now we made a little modification, and we're at a place where we are doing the movements pretty much pain-free. So then the next move that we did was increase the weight on the box squats, and we did 3 sets at the low height of the deadlift again. We're going to try to see how she responds to that again. So now the next progression, like we're saying, is we increase the weight and then try 3 3 sets straight of the deadlift from that 2-inch block, rather than that last set, which was that rack pull type movement. The response was good. So squats felt good, deadlifts felt good from 3 sets from the 2-inch block. So now what we did was it's time to kind of progress a little bit more. I think she was tolerating things well. Her body was getting desensitized to these type of movements. She was getting less pain throughout her day outside of training. She was continuing the exercises on her non-training days that we suggested in the beginning. The warm-up was feeling good. She was really gaining some momentum and feeling good. So what we did was we increased the RPE on the last set of the squat and deadlift to 8. Okay, we increased RPE to 8. We were keeping it at about 6 up until now. So now we want to push it a little bit. So we pushed it up to about 8, and but we kept it at 6 on those first 2 sets. So 2 sets at an RPE 6, and then 1 set at an RPE 8. And then we also took the box out from the squat and took the block out from the deadlift on the first set. Okay? So just to recap some of the modifications that we made here for the squat and the deadlift. We started with 3 sets with just the bar. With a squat, it was a box squat, and with the deadlift, it was a raised deadlift from about 2 inches. So start with those 3 sets with just the bar. That's consistent throughout. And then there's 3 working sets following that. Okay? In the beginning, the squat was tolerated well with the box. That pretty much was loaded consistently. And then up until this last progression, we increased the RPE 8 on the last set of the 3 working sets and took the box out from the first set. Okay? The deadlift, what we did was a little bit different because it wasn't tolerated quite as well. But we basically had, for those 3 working sets, we did 2 sets from a 2-inch block and then 1 set from shin height. That felt good. Then we progressed back down to 3 sets at the 2-inch block. And then this most recent progression, similar to the squat, we took the block out for the first set and increased RPE 8 on the last set. And that's where we are at now with her. So I should be getting a check-in soon. But that is basically how we go about this stuff. It's a lot of asking the athlete for their opinion. It's a lot of kind of not guessing and testing, but giving options, right? Giving options and always letting the athlete know this isn't set in stone. This may not work. But if it doesn't work, here are the steps we're going to take and the other things that we're going to try. Because there's always different things to try. And if you're working as a team with the athlete, then there's nothing better than that. So I hope this helps. Again, it's I look forward to doing more of these, bringing kind of the philosophy and some of the information that I put out, kind of bringing it to the surface where the rubber meets the road. And I hope that you guys will find benefit from it and enjoy it. All right. Thank you so much for listening in, and we'll see you next time.